Hey, welcome back everybody. Today we're talking about Rust Console Edition and the roadmap, or the chunk of information that we're going to see here that's going to really kind of outline how the rest of the year is going to go. We still have a lot of details that need to be filled in after this, but we finally know what they were talking about when they had the announcement for March 10th, and we're going to go over it. So the long and the short of it is, it's good long term, short term, I don't know. It's it explains a lot now. I can fill in the gaps here, but as far as like some of the content, I don't know when it's going to come in. So let's just go ahead, and we got a snippet for this. Let's just go ahead and bring it up here so we can talk about. I'll read it off to you because I know the text is probably pretty small. So let me just kind of chill here for a second and read over it. Okay, it says Double 11 is working on an Xbox Series and a PlayStation 5 native version of Rust Console Edition. That is very exciting news. Honestly, not what I expected. We'll talk more on this here in a second. It says this upgrade is the key word here, will deliver enhanced visuals, smoother performance, and unlock features previously limited by older hardware. We are targeting a 2025 release. And in the meantime, updates to the current version of the game will focus purely on, here we go, quality of life improvements and performance optimization. Our team is now laser focused on the next gen transition. It says we'll be supporting older platforms with stability fixes. Very key words there, right? It's very important. It says we know you all have questions. It says lots of them, in fact. It says we'll start addressing them in the near future. Please do. Keep the communication up. You know, that's a point of contention with a lot of us, through dedicated posts on our official channels. So keep an eye out for teasers and updates as we reveal more in the coming months. Thank you for your patience and support. We can't wait to show you what's coming. See you in the island. Okay, so a couple of key things to kind of point out here. We'll bring back the screen. This is stamped with Face Punch and Double 11. And this does explain why they tried to NDA. I don't think it was in their control. I think a Face Punch pushed that out. And they're like, look, we're going to do this. And I wish I kind of would have known, because then I just would have hit up Face Punch. And I'm sure they would have let me talk about it to some degree. Or they wouldn't have clamped me with an NDA that was like broad sweeping. It would have been more specific to that update. So we could talk about other things like, you know, the things we've discovered up to this point. So it's very interesting. As a matter of fact, let me bring this up real fast. So the keywords here, I wish I could point this out. It says an upgrade will deliver enhanced visuals. Interesting. I don't think, from the wording here, we'll have to pay more money. I don't think. And another key thing to kind of say, or to kind of point out here, is the transition. And it says we'll be supporting older platforms with bug fixes. What I think this really means, so there's a code split, at least in the short term. So what that means is they're going to have to support another version of the game, which is going to be next-gen version. But it looks like they're going to slowly wean off of the current build that we're on now. But they'll just do stability for it. So it looks like they're going to do the slow, not sunsetting, they'll still support it, but it looks like essentially we'll get content up to a certain point if you're on the old gen stuff, or the core system. We'll just call them core systems. By the way, for argument's sake, I'll say next gen, and I mean Xbox Series X and S, and I also mean PlayStation 5. We'll just call them next gens, even though they're kind of current gens now. They've been out for years, but for argument's sake, I'll say next gen, and then when I mean older systems, I'll just call them core systems. Here's what's going to happen. This is how I'm reading all of this, and it does make sense, because I don't think they're really expanding the team from what I can gather. So what this means is, up to a certain point this year, the content will just stay at that for those older systems, so it'll stay locked. Then they'll do like bug fixes and stuff, and then that's it. And it looks like all of the new stuff will be back on to the next gen stuff, or not back on. It'll be just on that branch. And that's, like I said, that's good news and bad news, right? Because in the short term, I think it's kind of bad news, because they're basically saying it's going to be months and months. Oh, and by the way, that other keyword here where they say we're targeting a 2025 release, like, are we going to have the whole year as just sitting on our nuts the whole time? I hope not. I mean, we'll still play. Obviously, I love Rust, but man, that's a swift kick in the old bags. Hopefully we get some more clarification. Hopefully we get some more communication. But here's the upside, here's the uptick, and this is very realistic. You've heard me say this many times over the years, and it's 100% true. The PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series systems are face melters. They can handle this game, even though Unity is dog water as an engine. That's what the PC version and our version is built on. Even Gary himself has said, It's absolute garbage. It was cool back then, but I think the industry has shifted. I mean, this game's been out for 11 years on PC. A lot of things have changed. So I think they're on their 12th year now. Because of that, Unity used to be more of a shining light, not so much anymore. Because of that, when we transition here to the console side of things, we have a limited resource pool, and it really limits things. Now, to give credit to Double 11, they have done a lot with a very trash engine, and also very limited resources, and supporting like at least 5 different versions that I can think of, right? Because essentially, well, versions, it has to run on the lowest common denominator. So to get this to run on the PS4 and the Xbox One and stuff is no small feat, because Unity is trash. And what do I mean by that? Like, a lot of people have said, hey, like Arc can do so much more, and I'm like, yes, that's because it's the Unreal Engine and not the Unity engine. That's a big thing. And so the engines aren't written by like Facepunch or Double 11. That is a engine that's written by somebody else, and then they license that engine so they don't have to spend all the money on the nerds, the R&D. Anyways, because of that, I mean, props to Double 11. They've done quite a bit with very little. I know it's not at the pace we want. Obviously, communication's been very poor the last 6 months. So we'll just call it half a year, because that's what it's been almost. But I think obviously they can try to talk around the NDA stuff, but it makes sense now why they were like, hey, they couldn't really talk because it was dictated by Facepunch. And again, I wish I would have like thought about that angle, because I just would have went right to the community manager with Facepunch, and I'm sure I could have talked to him and been like, you know, maybe I couldn't have talked about this particular update, but I could have talked around other stuff, and still we could have talked about like the stuff we've discovered. More on that in a second. Anyway, so the engine stuff, to kind of rewind. The engine stuff is a good thing long term, and as I was saying before, those new systems can handle this, no doubt in my mind. And here's the other thing. I don't know what content they're going to slip in before they kind of stop it in time, and then they just kind of support it. I do know that cars and minis are on the table for even the old gen stuff. Now the question is, when did they just scoop it all up and stick it in the next gen version? That would be the easiest thing to do. Are they going to try to squeeze it in with the progress that they have currently? Because let's be real, I think this came on around September-ish last year, because they had a completely different plan, and it feels like something changed, and then they just went quiet. And I think this was it. That this was the big change. They're like, how do we support this with the team that we have? Because ultimately, and you heard me say this prior, this wasn't a Double 11 decision to make a native version for the next gen stuff. That's a Facepunch decision. I mean, look at the stamp. How often do we officially get the stamp on that for a communique? We don't. So because of that, I think their plans had shifted dramatically. And that explains why they NDA'd. That explains why they had a lot of momentum, and it seems like they just stopped and went cold. It explains why they were so weird to all the creators saying, hey, you can sign an NDA and do all this other stuff. I'm like, brother, did you read the NDA? It's way too constrictive. Like, so like, I still don't want to sign it, because they can ultimately clamp us. You know, we won't be able to see the stuff that we've already discovered. But the question is, are helicopters, modular vehicles, are they going to be swept into that new version, or are they going to squeeze that out for one last content piece and then stamp it in time for the older versions? But the good news is the next gens can handle it like you wouldn't believe. Like, there's so many different things. Like, you won't believe what this game really looks like when you have all of those the layers turned on. There's a lot of layers they had to turn off for the older systems. The game's beautiful. And yeah, even with Unity being absolute dog water with performance, the next-gen consoles are face melters, and they'll be able to utilize a larger resource pool, but like a beefier graphics set. And I think even with Unity being garbage, it'll still chew it up and spit it out. So I'm excited to see those changes. I hope these follow-up communications are quick. Leaving us in limbo for too long is not good for the community. I hope they... Well, and now that, here's the thing. Now that I know it's kind of like a Facepunch thing, I'll be working both channels to kind of see, you know, channels of communication to kind of see what we can come up with. Because I'm sure they'll be like, yeah, you can talk about X, Y, Z, and then, you know, if Facepunch NDAs me, it's only going to be for a specific thing. So if we find things here, we don't have to necessarily clamp it. I mean, we found a lot already. We already know the tunnel system's being worked on. I mean, if you look at the map set here, this is literally the hybrid between the current version of terrain and the old. The road system here is very much a ring road system for cars. We already saw Junkyard in the early custom server update. what was it, a year ago now? Year and change? We already know that the terminal station was over here. By the way, they did try to brush it over a little bit, but guess what? There's still no grass there. Also, this chunk of gravel here is the new road that's going to come around when the cars do eventually come out, because there'll be a road here that kind of connects, and then a road that spits out here like a paved road, and then there'll be like little jersey walls here. This turret will be moved, and there'll be like a pile of junk, and then there'll be like some new car models that sit right here. So again, strong indications that we're going to see things like trains, cars, and minis. The question is, what are they going to stamp in time for those older versions? Let's not forget, on that survey, what, 2 years ago now? Maybe 2.5 years ago? They were talking like, hey, what do you want to see next? So they made a list of things they could achieve, and one of those things, well, two of those things were modular vehicles and minis. So, you know, it's still possible. I don't know what's going to be set in stone. It would make sense, like if they're having a hard time with that stuff, it would make sense for them to kind of stamp it and, you know, get what they can, and then just kind of move on to the next gens, because they can handle it, no doubt. Hopefully, we're getting those updates quickly and big content updates after it gets transitioned over to the next gen version, because, oh man, just waiting like 3 to 4 months for updates hurts so bad. And after hearing we're getting like monthly updates, I was so excited. But then like them going basically dark for 6 months was such a swift kick in the old nuts. It was like, come on. And then they wouldn't talk to us. I'm like, come on, guys, what are we doing? So it makes sense now. It's good news, I think, in the long term. Short term, I don't know where it's going to be. But I would still say, whether it's for next gens or the old gens, or I should say just both, we are going to see helicopters. We are going to see cars, definitely. And we are going to see the train system. The question is, when and on what system? Well, it's basically just for the old systems. We already know the next gens can handle it, no doubt in my mind. So I'm hoping for the old gens version, or for the old version's sake, that we at least get, you know, a mode of transportation like cars for them at least. And to be fair, I think this this kind of hybrid, this donut map, it does strongly support the fact that we could possibly see cars for the older gen before they stamp it in time. We'll kind of have to wait and see, but yeah, definitely a giant shift, and we finally know what it is. And we have finally next gen version support, and they're going to slowly transition us into it. So excited for that. We'll keep you guys posted. Hopefully we see you in the next live stream /video. Love ya. Bye.